Representative Nancy Barto represents Legislative District 15 in North Phoenix and surrounding communities. Nancy chairs the House Health and Human Services Committee, responsible for overseeing Arizona's Medicaid, public health, welfare and child safety agencies, and related boards. She also serves on the Education and Judiciary Committees. Nancy's driving purpose remains protecting citizens' fundamental freedoms, emphasizing the belief that government that is limited enables a citizenry that is free. With this goal in mind, Nancy has sponsored bills promoting government that is accountable and transparent, that serves its citizens from religious freedom to the Second Amendment, respects their constitutional rights. She has successfully sponsored affordable patient-centered healthcare options, worked to establish Arizona's business-friendly tax and regulatory environment, and keep our tax dollars prioritized on government's main responsibilities, protecting the public, education, and infrastructure. A consistent leader for families, Nancy has been a strong voice for the unborn, as well as reform and accountability in Arizona's foster care, developmental disability, long-term care, and mental health systems. She and her husband, Joe Barto, grew up in Phoenix and are proud parents of 3 daughters and 3 grandchildren. Nancy studied vocal performance and elementary education at Arizona State University and ASU West. Prior to her legislative service, Nancy enjoyed a career as a mother, a community volunteer, and a public policy advocate. Welcome to the Modern Assyrian on ANB-SAD. My name is Carmen Morad. We have a very special program today. Joining us is Representative Nancy Barto from Phoenix, Arizona, and Romina and Samaria of SAFO Center from Arizona chapter. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Nancy Barto, I would like to, first of all, thank you so much by taking time out of your extremely busy schedule in these challenging and trying times to make time for us today. Thank you.
It's an honor to be with you, Carmen. Thank you so much for prioritizing this interview. It's just a real honor for me to be here today.
Thank you so much. We know that these are times that everything has been switched upside down, especially as elected officials. This is the time that we see leadership. And again, thank you for taking time out for the Assyrian community one more time.
Well, as you can see, I'm not working from the legislature. I'm here in my home, like everybody else, social distancing out of necessity for the COVID-19 containment. And so we are not meeting at the Capitol right now. We've taken a brief recess. And but that doesn't mean, like you said, we're not keeping pretty busy. It's really difficult on everybody right now to try to abide by social distancing restrictions, and also to keep some kind of sense of normalcy in our lives. I know the government at every level is trying to meet the needs, listen to our constituents that are having issues in trying to qualify for different benefits that are mitigating features of how this is all going to roll out to help people get through this time, from businesses to families. So those are the kinds of things that are keeping me pretty busy, in addition to sort of planning for when we're going to come back. We're going to come back hopefully in another few weeks to try to address some of the financial issues that I think are going to demand some attention, looking at the latest financial numbers of revenues as a result of what's happened. We're all hoping that we can get back to normal sooner rather than later, safely. And I think we can do that in Arizona. We're not New York. We're not seeing the numbers here in Arizona that they're seeing in New York, and our projections are much lower, are much higher than the actual numbers that we're seeing. So I'm hopeful, and I hope everyone is.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. We are hoping and praying for health and wellness and well-being of our community. And taking precautions and following guidelines is key. Thank you for that update, Representative Barto. Let's begin. First of all, I would like to congratulate everyone on the beginning of the Assyrian New Year of 6,770. We are hoping that we will have a better year than the way we started it this year. Representative Barto, I would like to ask you, before this program actually began, we saw and heard your comments on the Assyrian Genocide Resolution at the Capitol that happened a few weeks ago. And I would like to begin by asking you this very important question of how this conversation on the Assyrian genocide was brought to your attention and how you first found out about SAFO Center with the Arizona chapter.
Well, it happened a few years ago, actually. I was visited, like I am, like all of us at the Capitol are, by constituents on this particular issue. I would say 3 or 4 years ago, and invited to attend an event on SAFO, given by SAFO Center, as well as the Assyrian college students, to really learn about the historical events and what it all entailed. And so it intrigued me because I hadn't heard, I knew nothing about the Assyrian genocide. And so I attended an event, I attended a movie, and got to know what actually occurred. And it was very eye-opening to me and to others at the legislature who were interested. So, you know, taking the time to get to know what was going on was the first step in making sure that we, you know, we can better understand. It's so important for legislators and officials at all levels to interact with their constituents and understand them. I think in our kind of divisive political atmosphere, we don't do enough of that. So I'm grateful that they do that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You know, it is truly one of the most important things with the Assyrian community. We are descendants of genocide survivors. It is a part of our history. And we have that obligation to not only remember those victims, we honor them. We have a special day, as you know, Representative Barto, that we take time out. We reach out, we seek proclamations and resolutions and an affirmation of what has happened. And what you did with this resolution at the Capitol to inform and educate your colleagues, your peers, and for the Assyrian community to be able to really have a voice, because these atrocities are forgotten. Unfortunately, we hear of other atrocities that have happened, but when it comes to the Assyrian community, for some reason, this conversation does not happen as often as it should, as a history in lessons that must be learned. Dr. Romina, I would like to go to you on how you were able to reach or come to the language of the resolution with Representative Barto.
Thank you, Carmen. First of all, I want to thank everybody at Assyrian National Broadcasting for this opportunity to talk about our mission in SAFO Center Arizona chapter. And I want to also thank Representative Barto for joining us today. It really, truly, this means the world to us. So as you know, and many of the viewers probably know, SAFO Center was established about 25 years ago in Europe by Mr. Sabri Atman. And he also started the US SAFO Center a few years ago. and the Arizona chapter was established more officially about 2 years ago. And I actually met Representative Barto through Sabri over some coffee. It was as simple as that. And the rest is really history. We started a dialogue. We got to know her, and she got to know us. It was truly an honor and a privilege to have worked with her on this project. And without her, this really would not have been possible. I want to add that the Assyrian community in Arizona dates back to 70s, early 80s. And this was first time ever in the history of Arizona that the Assyrian Genocide of 1915 and Assyrian Remembrance Day, August 7th, were recognized in the state of Arizona by the House of Representatives. And really, this is all thanks to Representative Barto and her efforts.
Thank you so much, Romina. Representative Barto, this is truly a first in Arizona, and it really gives that feeling of belonging as a community to Assyrians living in your district and all of Assyrians who are listening today to this program. Because as our new home, as the United States, we've had a massive exodus from the east to the west. There are more Assyrians living in diaspora now than in our ancestral homelands. So as citizens, the premise of this program, Representative Barto, has been civic engagement. And truly what we see today by SAFO Center and other activists and advocates, this civic engagement means exactly what we're doing today here, having a conversation with you and thanking you for the steps that you have taken, because it really starts with a conversation, but it really has continuity and it leads to future events and goals. And that's where I would like to ask Samaria to step in and share with us what it means as a young Assyrian involved in SAFO Center, involved in the preservation and advancement of the Assyrian cause. Go ahead and let us know what your experience has been meeting with Representative Barto and what this means to you, Samaria.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us on. Representative Barto has been great. Like she mentioned, we had met in the past. And, you know, it kind of takes me back to that time when we did meet. And, you know, there were times when we've tried to do, you know, civic engagement, reaching out to the community, kind of climbing the ladder, so to speak. And we were met with opposition or roadblocks, you know, and we kept on. So when, you know, this finally did come to fruition, it was euphoric in a sense that we made it, but it was also, you know, you stop and you wonder, is there a caveat? Is something, you know, this is almost too good to be true because we've been so persistent, you know, and we've tried so hard to bring the community leaders in, to let them know who we are, what our mission is, that, you know, we're here in Arizona, we're here in the United States, we're active members of our society. And, you know, here we have a voice, you know, and in this instance, you know, Senator Barto gave us a voice, you know, and for everyone that we had met who told us that they were genocide survivors or they had family members who were survivors of the genocide, you know, it brings that flood of emotions back to where, you know, you hear our wounds are still open. And it really resonates, you know, because I could feel that their wounds were very raw. And, you know, when that happened, it just, we didn't fix it all, but it kind of, it helped, you know, it's a stepping stone in the right direction. And I hope, you know, whoever is watching this kind of leads the path in their own home state in the United States. So yeah, it was very exciting. Thank you again.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. You said it beautifully. There are steps and measures that can be taken. One of the words that always comes up when we talk about very morbid, because that's what these atrocities are. They are atrocities. It's genocide it's about killing. It's about a very systemic and chronic way of eliminating a group of people. So how do we engage in conversations with that, especially with our elected officials or non-Assyrians who really can have a way of this affirmation? And closure is one way. However, we often talk about genocide, but in this resolution, we talk about the 1915 genocide. However, Representative Barto, there are so many more. It is an unfortunate dark part of our history where there are so many different genocides, whether in different regions, different perpetrators, and different times and years. And perhaps we can have a discussion with historians, with professors, and they can educate us more. However, for those of us who are advocates and activists, especially the work of Safo Center, has been to gain knowledge and education and information. And with this resolution that you have truly made a difference, because it gives us maybe a smaller step towards a closure. Because with genocide, as we saw it not too long ago, actually, with ISIS, the same ethnic cleansing and the same barbaric atrocities were inflicted again. And again, the Assyrians and the Christians of that region, along with other ethnic minorities, were victimized once again. So this conversation is important to be had. And I would like to go back to Dr. Romina and ask her, once this resolution has been achieved, what goals do you have with the Safo Center as interim chairwoman right now? What comes next?
Well, that's a very broad question. So I'm just going to mention a few things, projects that we've been working on for quite some time, and we're going to just continue with those. We started a survey a few years ago asking our community how they feel about having a monument, genocide recognition monument in the state of Arizona, or more specifically in the city of Phoenix. And we have interviewed over 500 people online through our churches, in person, and also at various Assyrian functions. For example, the annual convention that's held by Assyrian American Nationalization. So that's a big project in and by itself. We're in the analysis phase. Some of the data we have analyzed, and we would like to actually publish a paper on this. Is going to be one of a kind, and really the first time that the Assyrian community have actually published data on themselves. So I think this is going to be very helpful, not only for the community, but also for state representatives to look at data such as that. And it will give them a better understanding of what the subset of the community actually needs, what the requirements are. And we see a lot of interest on the parts of our representatives. Of course, Representative Barto can probably also confirm that. She has been very much engaged. And this recognition actually was made possible through her efforts, but also it was a bipartisan effort. We had Representative Jennifer Germain, who co-sponsored it, and Representative Frank Carroll, who also co-sponsored it in the House of Representatives. So that's the survey is one of our projects. We also sponsor scholars and speakers along with other communities to speak at the Scottsdale Community College Genocide Awareness Week, which is the largest genocide symposium in Northern America. And it takes place in April, which is the month of genocide recognition. And we also take part, along with other organizations within the community, commemorating August 7th, here in Arizona, and really it's a commemoration that's done universally throughout the world, and now Arizona House of Representatives have recognized August 7th officially as the Remembrance Day. We also engage on a larger scale with universities, colleges, because they need information on this genocide. And I should really specifically say SAFO Center, not just the Arizona chapter, publish books. And as many of you know, Sabri Atman is an expert in this field, and he also gives lectures at various universities. So we have a very narrow field. Our focus is simply Assyrian genocide recognition and advocacy for it, but we have a lot to cover because it's such a intricate part of our history. So we have a lot to do. Sorry, it was a long answer to a very brief question.
Actually, it really is fitting because it does involve a lot of work and advocacy. And Representative Barto, the comment about the monument is very interesting. Monuments are really a place of coming together. They can be very peaceful. They can be a place of reflection. We have seen it, for example, at CSU Stanislaus in Turlock for the past 3 years. We actually engage in doing an Assyrian genocide remembrance. And the first year, our keynote speaker was Mr. Sabri Atman. And it was an opportunity to invite other cultures as well. Our Punjabi, Hmong, and Korean and Vietnamese and other cultures that we work very closely with. It was a way to come together, to reflect, to remember, but it was in a way that it was to provide information and education. And the conversation of a monument is very interesting. Can you tell us how we can see something like that happening and what measures we need to take as an Assyrian community to bring that into fruition?
Well, actually, bringing up the monument is interesting because we actually started there a few years ago with the bill to establish an Assyrian monument to the genocide, and it made it out of the House or out of the Senate. I was in the Senate at that point, and so I think there was a lot that was part of the whole learning process of the legislature. Was doing that bill, and I think it's whether it's successful now or in the future, monuments play an incredible role of, like you said, Carmen, bringing people together. Mm-hmm. It's a tangible way to mourn, to express the truth. There's so much here to unpack with with all of your efforts that you're doing in proclaiming your history, because Americans all have a history, and the first step to really understanding and upholding our freedoms and values in America is telling the truth, and understanding one another's history, and then getting to know each other through that, hearing each other's stories. We will never be successful if in the future if we don't tell the truth and connect with one another on that basis. But community by community, I was so surprised to learn at that point that there were so many Assyrians living amongst us. Mm-hmm. 35,000 in just the Phoenix area, and probably growing because Arizona's a wonderful state in which to live. I think a welcoming state, but there's such a push and a pressure to avoid subjects like genocide and negativity, and see it. These people see themselves as being negative when they talk about their past and what's important to them, rather than what the future holds, in order to use that to build on a foundation of truth and respect for one another. And, not forgetting your history is a foundational stone of that a monument represents.
Absolutely, beautifully put. Another thing, Representative Barto, is that as a part of this conversation, as difficult as it is vital that we also promote the fact of resiliency with the Assyrian community. Yes, we do talk about the victims. We honor them. We have to, because it is a part of our obligation. However, it is also extremely important to note that resiliency defines Assyrians worldwide. And for the fact that now living in countries where we do have freedom of speech, freedom of expression and worship, and the beauty of establishing relationships and working with wonderful representatives like yourself to be able to have a voice, it also leads to the fact that through this engagement, we are able to become better citizens of this country. We are able to give back to a community that has embraced us, that has offered us this freedom, and for us to have a voice. So thank you for bringing that out in all of us, especially in Arizona.
I would just say you've just hit on the second very important point of the importance of what you're doing, is really seeing that how fragile those freedoms are. And when you do connect yourself to a country like America, you have to look at it as fragile. And so making yourself a part of American freedom and the values we cherish, free speech, religious freedom, involves speaking up when it's uncomfortable, when it's politically incorrect, and having the courage to do that at that very point, because we don't know when we will be the voiceless in the future. So being involved is so critical. Getting involved in every way and telling the story. And, I really applaud the efforts that you're going to, the lengths you're going to, the out-of-the-box thinking that the SAFO Center and is doing in order to reach the generation in front of you, and that's the Samarias of the world.
Thank you so much. Those are wonderful words in closing of this conversation. And I always add my friend Sabri Adman's comments about to prevent futures to happen in the future is to condemn the ones that happened prior. So this work is about that. It leads to genocide prevention. It leads to finding out through historians, through the language, through those historical facts that are the language in these resolutions. So thank you again for all of your efforts. And thank you for being here, for taking time out. And hopefully we'll have other conversations with you on issues that you're working with the Assyrian community. And in any closing thoughts from Romina or Samaria about SAFO Center and how we would like to close this conversation today?
I'll let Samaria go first.
Okay. I mean, from my part, it's just, we realize the importance, like you said, of speaking up. We appreciate having the platform to be heard, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And we thank you, and I am confident in saying that we thank you on behalf of all of the Assyrians here in Arizona and truthfully around the world. So thank you again.
Romina?
And I would like to add that, again, this was a very interesting and exciting learning experience for me personally. And I think personally, I learned a lot from Representative Barto. And just to put it out there, she is running for the Senate this year. So I would think more for her to make it back into the Senate, and we can hopefully continue this dialogue with her. And we're all rooting for her, and we're behind her.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Representative Barto, any closing comments to our viewers, whether they are your constituents or other members of the Assyrian community who are considering moving to Arizona? Any closing comments?
Well, I just want to thank you so much for what you do, Carmen. You do it beautifully. Having a program like this that's really focuses on what's really important. Keep up the good work, and I so appreciate being part of it. And I guess the message I would have would be just to continue being bold. Being who you are, and being a part of the society that you were placed in for the time. Arizona is, like I said, it's a welcoming place, but we're in transition. Our country is in transition, and our state is in transition, which is why I'm running for the state Senate. We need to hold our values, and they're really on the bubble. They're really in a transitory time, and people need to be involved in their government in order to keep our freedoms right now. What we're seeing happening in other countries can happen here, and it happens in the states first. And so what I really just appreciate the values, the freedoms that the Assyrian Christians that I've met through this process, and so many other communities that make Arizona their home. We share a lot of the same values, but they will not hold if we don't fight for them. So that would be my message: is fight for our freedoms.
Thank you very much. You have the last word, Representative Barto. This concludes our conversation. I wish you all the best. Thank you for all your efforts. Thank you for this collaboration, because we all benefit from it. Thank you again for joining us. This concludes our conversation. My name is Carmen Morad. We'll see you on the next Modern Assyrian.